Hi, I'm Oryx Cohen and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the National Empowerment Center, and right now I'm here in Adelaide, South Australia for the Reawaken Australia conference, and I know that this will be heard by people in Brazil for Rethinking Madness. Myself, I'm from the United States, so I think it really reflects that we have a global movement. First, I wanted to recognize the Emerging Proud movement across the globe. Also wanted to thank Sanat and Pablo Valente and the Rethinking Madness folks from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Also wanted to recognize that Rethinking Madness is the title of a book by my good friend Paris Williams that I highly recommend. So in starting this, I wanted just to reflect on where we're at in the US, at least from my perspective, in terms of all of this. And I think we can look to the US and as an example, because one reason is because we've developed several peer-run organizations. These are organizations run by people with lived experience with mental health, trauma, and addictions. And the National Empowerment Center where I work is one such organization. And we have several of these peer-run organizations across the country, oftentimes several in each state. So the U.S. is the birthplace of self-help, and I think that's a real strength that we can look towards in the U.S. Also, led by peers, we've begun to really question some of the traditional treatments in psychiatry, including medication. So with our leadership and people like Will Hall, Laura Delano, Haya Grossberg, and many others, we've developed a manual that's been written by Will Hall, a harm reduction guide to coming off psychiatric drugs. And it's about giving people choice in what they choose to do for themselves. It's not a pro-drug approach, it's not an anti-drug approach, but it allows space for people who don't find the drugs useful or even harmful to find another path with support. And we've also noted in the U.S. that more and more of us who have been written off, diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, the most severe diagnoses, myself being diagnosed with bipolar, and myself not believing in the labels, and also I've been hospitalized, and many of us have been in hospitals for long periods. We've been forcibly drugged, we've been restrained, isolated, some of us electroshocked. And despite all of this, and I think in large part due to some of the innovations of the peer movement, many of us are making amazing transformations in our lives. We're healing. Myself, I now have a beautiful family. I have 2 kids. I have meaningful work in the work that I do, and I feel like I'm more connected with everything. And we're going to get into spirituality here in a second. Some of the other innovations that are happening in the U.S. Are intentional peer support, WRAP, which is the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, and peer respites, which are alternatives to hospitals staffed by people who have been through the experience. And I recommend that you
Google these, find the websites, and look into these more. And there's several others, and there's one other that I wanted to highlight because it's one that I'm very involved with and passionate about, and that's emotional CPR. Emotional CPR was developed as a practice for any human being to be able to be with another human and help them through an emotional crisis. It was designed originally for that purpose. The most extreme crises we can think of, suicide, hearing voices, extreme anxiety. But we found also that eCPR can be a way of life. It can be a way of just relating to other people, to connecting with others heart to heart. And we found that often that's all that people need, is an authentic connection, either with another person or with spirit, the environment, the earth. So I wanted to close this by touching a bit on spirituality, because I know it's one of the themes especially of rethinking madness. And I don't think we talk enough in the U.S. about spirituality and its importance in people's lives, in all of our lives. And for me, I can just speak for myself what that means. I remember having a conversation with my good friend Will Hall about some of my experiences, and he stopped me right there and he said, well, the minute you put language to these experiences, it loses meaning, because the spiritual dimension is a different dimension. But I'm going to do my best to kind of paint a picture and give a feel of my interpretation of spirituality. And at first, when I had some of these spiritual experiences, it really frightened me, and it actually kind of led to altered states or losing touch. Extreme states led to me being locked up and labeled. And I think one reason is, well, there's two reasons. One is other people's reactions. I was not supported, and other people around me saying, oh, hey, maybe you're having a spiritual experience. How can we support you? How can we guide you through this? That's one. Another is my own kind of ego. Like, I'm the only one who's ever experienced these amazing spiritual experiences of oneness with the universe, that I am the trees, the clouds, that I am everything, I am a part of everything. And so there must be something special about what I'm going through. And my ego, I think, took over and things spun out of control. So those two factors kind of led to very difficult experiences. But I want to share a story to close, because I think this is the possibilities with these experiences, even if you struggled with them in the past. It was a couple of years ago, and I had just organized another major conference in the U.S., an alternatives conference, and it was the last day, and I was walking through this beautiful ballroom filled with hundreds and hundreds of people, and I had this feeling. And I think a lot of times it's hard to explain in words, because it was a feeling of oneness, that we are all one in this room. That yes, we're separate and we're one at the same time. And it was just a beautiful feeling. And in the past, my mind would have just taken flight and I would have been lost and disconnected, honestly, for days or weeks. And this time I just sat with it, and I just experienced the beauty of that experience, and of being with my fellow brothers and sisters in this moment. And since that time, I've been able to tap into that experience of being really connected with everything, and it kind of guides my life. So thank you for listening, and for any other information about what we do at the National Empowerment Center, you can feel free to contact us, and I wish you well in your journey.